relationships in the SWW family. He wanted to know my client, Matt Moore, was he going to stay in Miami or go? And we'd never met before. And I said, you know what? You'll be the first to know, but I need a favor. You need to come by our little conference and speak for a little bit. And he's been coming for over 10 years. He's a friend of the family. He never lets us down, and I appreciate him taking the time. He's got a hard schedule today, but let's welcome the insider of the NFL, Adam Schefter. It's all about me, folks.
Yeah, he has to take his phone and do a little of his business. We're going to let him do that.
Yeah, if Aaron Rodgers decides to come back during this talk and I have to leave, I hope you'll understand. If anything happens like that, like, just excuse me. Like, there are certain things, certain rules I want to just put down. Linz was saying that this is the 10th show. I think I've been talking to this group, honestly, I think it's like closer to 15 years. And the way we've always done it is I come up, I give some opening remarks, we answer a bunch of questions, and then afterwards, we usually take pictures and I post everyone. I hope nobody's offended. I'm not going to do that this year. I just don't think it's a great idea in the pandemic state. I've got a type 1 diabetic wife at home, and so I try to limit my contact a little bit. So nothing personal. I'm going to talk to everybody, but I'm not going to do the pictures this year. Hopefully, I'll say something that resonates with everybody and stays with you and makes a mark and helps make a little bit of a difference in your life and your careers going forward. And one of the reasons that I've talked to this group year after year is because I sat in your chair and I know what it's like to face an uncertain future, to have all these hopes and dreams, to want to do so much, to try to get a chance to advance in your career and to wonder how to do that. And I would also say that in a day and age like this, it's not easy. But there are also more outlets than ever before. When I was in college, and the last books will be bored by the story, but it gives an example into my window of thinking. I was an 18-year-old freshman at the University of Michigan, and I rushed to fraternity in my freshman year, the fall of my freshman year, and I didn't get in. Got rejected. And I've always been the kind of guy that liked to be busy to do things. And so I said, well, what can I do to keep myself busy? So I went down to the football office to see if they needed somebody to pick up jock straps and hand out water bottles, and they didn't need anybody. So I went to the basketball office to see if they needed somebody, and they didn't need anybody. So now I got the fraternity, the football office, and the basketball office all saying no, all telling me, no thank you. And I'm kind of stuck. And I'm like, well, I got to do something. So because I was rejected from those three places, I said, let me go try the student newspaper. Now, I had never written in high school, and I would even go to say that I was not a very good writer. But I thought, wow, this will be an entree into getting to meet people in the sports field, and how cool would that be at Michigan if I got to meet Bo Schembechler, the Michigan football coach, or Ramil Robinson, the Michigan basketball player. And so literally, the writing part of it was something that I was scared and intimidated about, but I figured I got to do something. And so there are a couple of things in there that I think are interesting. There's the idea of the rejection, okay, which has been a consistent theme in my journey, my professional journey, to where I am today. Rejection. I was rejected from the fraternity, rejected from the football office, rejected from the basketball office, rejected from jobs all through college. After I went through college and became the sports editor and worked for the Ann Arbor News Side and became a research assistant for Mitch Albom and did work for the Detroit Free Press, I still had hundreds of rejection letters pouring in, people telling me, no thank you. When 2 years later, I finally got my first job in Colorado, I wanted to cover the baseball team. They were getting an expansion baseball franchise. That's what I wanted to do. I was told no again. They interviewed a bunch of people, rejected, and didn't get that job. And so I was stuck covering the football team, the Denver Broncos in the National Football League. Now I think about that, like, how dumb was I to want to cover baseball when football was right there? Like, what was I thinking? And it shows you that we have various thoughts and various goals, and sometimes what you think might be a great solution or a great fit, it's not a great fit at all. And so I was rejected there. And then when the columnist job at the Denver Post opened up, after I'd been in Denver for about 15 years and I wanted to be a columnist in Denver, I applied for that and they gave me a hard time, nah. And at that point in time, right about that same time, the NFL Network called me. And they were interested in having me come aboard. And I was like, wow, the Denver Post doesn't want me for the job that I want, which is to be a sports columnist, which if I had done that, become a newspaper sports columnist, I wouldn't be here today. And I went to the NFL Network. I said, okay, I'll go try this TV thing. Let's see how this works out. Man. And then, 5 years into my stint at NFL Network, when my contract was expiring, and they weren't fair in the contract discussions, and literally made an initial offer and never moved off it, and then threatened me that if I didn't take the offer, they would pull me off air. I said, well, I can't do that. And they said, no problem, you're off the air. So I was bummed out at not getting to stay at NFL Network because that's what I wanted to do. Rejected again. And guess what? Everybody here is going to face continual rejection in their professional journeys and personal journeys probably too throughout the course of their life. And so when you get told no, when that door closes, when those things happen, all it means is it's an opportunity for you to find work and a job with somebody else. Somebody else is going to have the fortune, in your mind, of getting you to work for them, of you getting a chance to try to impress them. And what I would say to anybody in your chair, knowing what I know now, is that when you're younger, when you're trying to break into an industry, when you're trying to make your mark, do whatever you can. Do whatever you can to expand your field of knowledge, to get into the door, to do whatever it is, and to make yourself indispensable. Make it such that when you get a job finally with somebody, that they don't want you to leave. They don't want you walking out that door. I don't care whether you're getting coffee for the boss, cleaning the bathrooms, doing whatever it is. There was a guy I knew who, in the Denver Broncos team that I covered for the Rocky Mountain News back in the early 1990s, the Broncos were going out of town for a full week to play an exhibition game in Germany. They needed somebody to kind of look after their building, go through the mail, and they brought in a guy from the Air Force Academy who worked around the football program to kind of oversee the building while they were gone and make sure that everything functioned. Well, they liked him so much, he stayed. He stayed on. Not only did he stay on, eventually they put him in the personnel department. Eventually, he went from the personnel department to becoming the general manager of the team that won the Super Bowl. His name was Ted Sonkis. He's not working anymore. Various things happen. Doesn't really matter. The point is, he went from literally supervising the mailroom while the team was gone to becoming the general manager of the team that won the Super Bowl. And there's a lesson there. If you want to work for Google, Amazon, Morgan Stanley, ESPN, whoever, I don't care. I don't care what the job is at first. They're not going to hire you to run the company initially. Let's not delude yourself. I don't care if they hire you to clean the mail, to get coffee, to clean the back. You want to get in. And once you're in, get to know everyone and make your mark. And while you're getting in, again, I will come back to this. When I went out to Denver, after 2 years of rejection letters, 2 years of rejection letters, on the weekends, because I didn't know anybody in Colorado, because I moved down there at the age of 23, and I didn't have a life, really. I didn't have a social, I didn't have friends to go out, I didn't have family out there. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to volunteer to work. I did two things. I got a job in a restaurant as a guy that, I've never told this story here, as a guy that, I was the dessert chef prepare. I don't know, sous chef or something, whatever. So literally the first night of work, they said there's a cheesecake, big cheesecake in the refrigerator. Can you cut that into 16 slices? I took out this giant knife and I went to slice it through, and it was like dragging through all this cheesecake. It was so thick, and I went to go wipe down the knife and literally slit my finger. It was the first thing I did on the job. And so my first night on the job at the restaurant, I spent at the hospital getting stitches in my finger. And the next day, the Broncos were playing the Chiefs, and I had my whole hand wrapped up, and I'm trying to type on deadline with this thing on. So that kind of aborted my restaurant career. I didn't go very far in that particular industry, but I tried. And I also tried on the weekends. I would volunteer for the TV station. Now, here's the great part, right? You would think, well, you've never been on TV, and I see some of these clips now, and they were atrocious, and I was awful, and I can't believe they allowed me on television. But I was willing to do it for free. And here was the guy to them that was covering the Denver Broncos for the local newspaper, who knew the team as well or better than anybody in the media. And so they don't even have to pay me, they're gonna put me on TV. So I did probably 10 years of TV, not ever thinking that I would be going into TV. And so they didn't pay me initially. And eventually what they would do is they would give me $100 gift certificates to a men's shop where everything was $500. I couldn't even afford it. So like those $100 gifts, they were useless to me. And they would give me trade to a local hamburger place so I could get free food. I thought that was the greatest thing. And let's also be honest, I was on TV. I was cool in Denver. So when I'm a young guy and I'm trying to go on dates, I'm on TV. And so like, that was a bonus. I honestly couldn't care less about being on TV right now. TV is the office to doing my job, which is gathering information. But back then, that meant something. That was, when you were first on TV, that was cool. And so I volunteered to do TV, not having any intention of being on TV. And I didn't even know that I was training myself for other opportunities. And so when you're doing these things, if you volunteer to do other things, you don't know what you're going to be good at. You don't know what you're going to like and not like. You don't know where you're going to make your mark. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. And that's sort of how this whole thing evolved, accidentally, because nobody wanted me, because I didn't get to do what I wanted to do at any point in my career, because I was forced to stay on football, because I went into TV, because I had to leave NFL Network, and here I am today, talking to you all. Accidental. So, if there's a moral in there, the moral is get used and get ready for the rejection, because it's coming. Get ready to try different things. Get ready to do as much as you can. Make yourself indispensable. Just get your foot in the door. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're an intern. I don't care what it is. I get blessed all the time. I say, get in the door. And once you get in the door, make it so that they won't throw you out the door. Pretty simple. And so, like I said, that's been my, I would say, 32-year professional journey, because I started covering the Denver Broncos back in 1990. This is my 30th combine. 30th. And so I've done this for a long time. I've addressed a lot of these groups. I've had a similar message. It's never exactly the same, right? Flashbooks?
Right. It's always better each year.
They say that, so I'll come back next year. And so that's my message to you today before I open it up to your questions and answers. And I hope something there makes some sense for you today.
Line up, you guys, doing this.
I'm listening good. This is what my wife does all the time. I'm listening good.
All right. I'm Cameron Peters here with Missouri Baptist University. I just had a question for you. How many messages on average per day do you get with news for the NFL?
Well, it depends, right? Like in free agency, in a couple of weeks, which is a time of the year that's really busy, like hundreds. A day like this, you know, it's going off right now. Like I'm gonna walk out of here, I'm gonna be backed up. It's just the way it is. I don't know if there's a set number. Honestly, it's really tied to the NFL calendar. So if it's on a Sunday, it's probably real busy. Saturday might be quieter. Hundreds during free agency, hundreds during the draft. Not as many other times. It's just busy. It's nothing unusual.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jada Elias. I'm with Johnson & Wales University. And my question to you is, after facing so many rejections, did you ever feel that there was a point in your life when you felt you weren't good enough?
Yeah.
And how did you overcome that?
Yeah, constantly. Like that's a battle that you wage throughout your life, and it probably has affected and shaped my psyche to this day. It's not like all of a sudden you reach a certain professional threshold and you all of a sudden feel like, boy, I'm much better. You always feel like I'm going to be the guy that's going to be rejected. And so how do you overcome it? Honestly, like with any setback in life, anytime you're knocked down, you just get back up and you try fighting. It's easy to say, harder to do, but you just keep grinding away, putting one foot in front of the other, and know that it's completely normal to be rejected, to be knocked down, to go through battles, obstacles, not like a boss, not like a coworker, not like a company, not feel like you're advancing, not feel like your career's going in the direction. Like, I've had all that. Still have things that you wonder about. There's still things that leave me up at night wondering. So, it never ends.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alicia Law. I'm from New York. I would consider you to be a very reliable source for the NFL. How, over the years, have you, how are you able to get the news out as fast as you do? Do you have a team behind you?
No,
Is it just you?
Just me.
Okay.
One man operation.
And how long has it took you to get those resources and have people trust you to give you the information to provide it out to everyone? And then my second question is, how hard is it to maintain that work-life balance? Because even in the off-season, NFL is still busy. And
I would say this, that the relationships part, getting out the information, getting out the information, right? That's 32 years of working and understanding people and making connections and building trust with people, right? That is the most important thing in these relationships. People know, like I have people that talk to me and will come to me like as a sounding board. Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And they know, like some of the things I hear, I'm like, oh my God. And I can report it then that this team is trading that player. But I'm not doing that. I'm waiting. And I wait until the time is right. And often it works, but sometimes it doesn't. And so that's a hard thing. In terms of the balance, that's just always a challenge. I mean, I don't care what you do. I always think in any line of work, whether it's accounting, finance, architecture, medicine, broadcasting, journal, whatever it is, to be really good at your job, I think you've got to be invested and immersed in it. That's just the way that I've done it. If you're not kind of living your job, you can do well in it, but I just think you're capped. Like, it's got to matter to you. And so my family matters too. And so there's that juggling act that's always going on where I need their help and understanding of certain times. And I often get it, but don't always. And so that makes life hard sometimes too. And that gives us challenges and disappointments because they get mad. Like, I remember being away in Bristol, Connecticut a few years ago for free agency, the first week of free agency, which is always one of the most hectic weeks of the year. And literally, I almost don't sleep, and I'm working around the clock, and most of the top free agents had signed. And I was up there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I drove from Friday night, and I felt like everything was pretty much done. I get home, and I get a text, hey, this team's trading this guy. And I'm with my family, and I'm like, hold on. And I start, and my wife looked at me at one point, she's like, are you going to be with us, or is this going to keep going? And, you know, you do the best you can, and the truth is probably sometimes that sometimes I succeed, and sometimes I fail. I am mindful of it at all times, but I'm not successful at it at all times. I do the best I can with it, and also look for a little leniency and understanding from everybody involved, given the situation.
Thank you.
There's no specific right answer. It's a feel thing, and it's a hard thing, and it's one of the big things that we juggle and balance. Yeah.
I'm Mr. Schefter, fan finale from Boston College. You spoke about rejection, but were your parents or whoever raised you critical of what you were doing? And if they were, how did you deal with their criticism?
My parents, well, we're getting real Freudian here, aren't we? I mean, you know, I had a normal upbringing. My parents, you know, my mom was very encouraging. My dad was kind of quiet and laid back. You know, I'm very thankful for the type of childhood that I had. I also look back on it, and I think that my parents, my grandfather ran some 5 and dime stores on Long Island. And my dad and mom went to work for him. And when I was going to college, my grandfather, who I was as close to as anybody, he told me, you're making a mistake going to college. You should just come to work for the family business. And he truly believed that. Like, what are you doing going to Michigan? Like, you're wasting money on your education when you could be working. And I think about that all the time. Somebody that I loved as much as I did and listened to as much as I did disagreed with what I was doing. And he was 100% wrong. Couldn't have been more wrong. And in fact, I often laugh because, again, like I said, I listened to this guy. I was buying my first apartment in Colorado, and he called me up the night before I was buying it. He's like, why are you buying an apartment, a condo in Colorado? You're not even committed to staying there. You're going to wind up losing money. I got panicked. I bought the apartment in like 1996 with all my newspaper money. And I sold it 4 years later after it had doubled in value, and I had the down payment for my next house. My grandfather again. So, like, people can tell you what they think is right. It's always good to listen. Always good to listen. But you have to follow in your heart what you believe to be right. So that meant not going to the family business where I could have made a decent living. It's no longer, you know, the family business is out of business, and I'm still in business. At least for now, right? You got it. Yeah.
Max Williams from Missouri Baptist University. You talked about how you went from just being happy on TV to where you are now. What's the best piece of constructive criticism you've gained over the course of your career, and what advice do you have for how to take that criticism and turn it into something positive?
Criticism. Well, I get tons of criticism every day of my life, so I like to just go on social media. So, and you know, I think I've had people tell me. I had this conversation. I had breakfast with an ESPN executive just this week on Monday. We were talking about criticism and how we handle it and deal with it. And he said what I know is true, which is that, and again, look, it's like a balance question. How do you do it? Well, I think you have to kind of have a thick skin. I think you have to hear it. Like sometimes if somebody's saying something to me, like my boss once said to me, hey, on the opening segment of Monday Night Football, you're on your phone too much. You need to kind of put it down a little. That's a fair point. I made a conscientious effort not to. This isn't Monday And so I tried to adjust to that. The gentleman that I had breakfast with on Monday, we just say you just have to have a thick skin. At the end of the season, it was about, I would say a month ago roughly, I reported Tom Brady's retired. Now, again, I've been in the business for 32 years. My track record is what it is. I reported with a guy named Jeff Darlington, a colleague of mine, who works real hard and is real plugged in. We reported together because we made the decision that we felt like we had it. And for 3 days, holy cow. You would have thought that we tried to bomb Ukraine. Like, it was unbelievable. I mean, it's just incredible. And the amount of criticism. And so 3 days later, you're retired. I tried to not go on social media much and pay much attention, but you'd have to be totally ignorant to not know that it existed. On Monday that day, that week, I was picking up my 13-year-old daughter at school. She gets in the car and she's all upset. I'm like, what's the matter? She goes, what did you do to Tom Brady? And I said, oh, God, wow. All her friends or people at school were saying stuff to her. Your dad got it wrong. Teasing her. Like, that's a little over the line. But maybe they're kids, they don't know any better. But he retired the next, we reported what we reported. It was right. And for 3 days, people just attacked us. It's crazy. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, thanks for your time today. My name's Brett Johnson from Boston, Massachusetts. My question to you is, because of the nature of your position today, what are some of the strategies that you sort of use to keep yourself organized, if not at least somewhat organized, throughout your every day basis?
Talk about the organization, right? I keep a daily journal, and I have documented every day of my life since 1990. Every day. Like, you could ask me, what did you do on February 27th, 1994? We could go back and I'd have a whole description of the day. Like, you guys are making this journal entry from March 4th, 2022. Went and spoke to the class here, the JW. Tried to impart some words of wisdom. Hopefully some of it resonated. How do you do that, right? Like, some people say, yeah. Well, how do you keep a journal every day? How do you stay disciplined? How do you stay organized? I think these are all just choices that we all make. Who in here works out every day for 30 minutes? Who lives a healthy lifestyle? Who makes a decision to go to bed early? Who goes out late and struggles the next? Like, these are all choices. Who's on social media more than they should be? And by the way, there's no right or wrong. Everybody can do what they want with their life. I'm on social media probably more than I should be sometimes, right? But you just have to figure out what works. And I know for me, I just try to stay ahead of things. Like, before I came over here, I wrote about my journal from last night, some of the meetings I had, some of the people I met. I wrote about this morning, and now I was like, even with my journal, when I walked out the door of my hotel tent, which in a way was kind of liberating, I'm like, okay, I'll get to this tonight, tomorrow morning again. No, I'll be behind my message. How do you stay up with your message? It's the same thing. So it's just, I guess it's decisions and discipline, and you're in control of both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Justin from Chicago.
Hi, Justin.
Two-part question for you. How's your knee? I'm sorry about Soldier Field. How's your knee?
Yeah, I mean, my knee is, well, I had surgery scheduled for last week, and I didn't get it because I felt like I didn't need it. I worked with a physical therapist up until the time I went to the Super Bowl, and it's been feeling better. I mean, I still can feel it grab and click, but I appreciate the concern, Justin. A lot of people ask about that. That's an embarrassing version of it.
My second part question, I know there's a lot of new NFL executives, new GMs. How do you go about starting that relationship with them? Was it previous? And even say with players at the combine?
Yeah. Relationships, that's really the work of the job. working to get there. And I remember when I was a young kid, I was going to the NFL owners meetings for the first time, and this would have been, what year would this have been? This would have been roughly in the late 1990s. And I flew to Phoenix, and the meetings were at Biltmore in Scottsdale, Arizona. I remember getting to the airport. And I don't even know, how many of you have heard the name Will McDonough? I'm just curious by a show of hands. So probably not even a quarter of the room. But Will McDonough was probably the first great NFL insider on air. He was a great reporter. And I would see him on NBC and be like in awe of what he did. And he was in the airport. I went over to him and I said, Mr. McDonough, can I ride with you to the owners' meetings? He said, yeah. And I said, how do you do it? Like, how do you build the relationships? And what do you do? And he said something then that stayed with me, which I don't think is necessarily true today, but a version of it is, he said, find 4 really plugged-in people in the NFL and get close to them. 4. I said, okay, Mr. McDonough, I will do that, you know. And I would say that I've got a lot of strong relationships with a lot of people, more than 4, but it's always evolving. And there are times when you feel particularly close. I can think of a team that was making a quarterback trade in the last few years, where I was on the phone with their GM every day, going over things. And I haven't spoken to that GM here in a couple months. So I felt really close to him at that time when we were going through it. And if I saw him outside, I probably would still feel a great connection, but I haven't spoken to him recently. And so relationships, like your relationships with friends, it's always evolving, right? Sometimes you feel closer to a person, other times you feel closer to another person. But it's part of your job to maintain those relationships, maintain as many of those relationships as possible. And when there's new people coming through, like, I mean, it's funny now, it's easier to know these people. Like the Browns hired this, the Vikings hired this general manager from Cleveland, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. And so I texted him, I'd never spoken to him. I'm like, hey, Kwesi, congratulations. And he's like, oh, you don't remember, but we spoke on the phone one time, you were calling the 49ers offices when I was there, and you were talking to a group of us. Now, I didn't remember, but I've done this long enough now. I've spoken to people that, and everyone in my paths, I've crossed with a lot of these people anyway. So they're aware of me, I'm aware of him, we just haven't connected, and now I connected. I still haven't spoken, we're sitting here. So you're always building and maintaining relationships.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's going on, Adam? My name's Gabe. I'm from Houston, Texas.
I do.
So I just want to know, this is going to sound good, but that doesn't answer. Good question. But when you were talking about trust earlier, developing that trust with people. So what detail exactly are you looking for when you start networking with someone? When you approach them for the first time?
I'm not looking for any detail. I'm just looking to meet them, establish a relationship. And by the way, some people you're going to establish a relationship with, and other people you're not. Some people you might like, but they may not like you. Some people you might like them, but they might like you. Some people there might be a connection, just like with friends in school. It's really the same kind of concept. But as you're building that relationship, you know, it's important to show that you can be somebody that can be trusted in that relationship. That if they tell you, hey, you know, I'm trading my starting quarterback, you can't say anything until I get it done. Oh, okay, and you do it then. So anyhow, I'm not looking for anything other than just building. Right now, I'm looking to maintain my relationships. What I'm looking to do.
Yeah.
Alex Kujow, I'm from Wisconsin, so any news on Rodgers would be great.
But you just retired.
Just kidding. Very similar to a lot of the questions previously, but you know, when approaching people for the first time, you don't need to give away your secrets on where to go to do those things, but how to just approach those initial conversations with people.
It's just I don't know if there's a right approach, and I've done it so long that it's different now, because if they meet me, they know that I work for the biggest sports media network out there. They know that I've got a big social media platform. So it's just different right now than it would be if you met somebody for the first time.
Right.
Like when I was your age and meet these people, I was all eager to meet them and try to get to know them and have them get to know me and to have that relationship grow. Like, yeah, that was really important to me.
Right.
And I don't know, but I don't think it's anything different other than, you know what it is? It's being a professional to that person. It's being a professional. It's being courteous and wise and smart. And in my case, I think what allowed me to keep doing that and to grow, which is, I think, a version of what various people have asked, is I found out that the more information I had, the more people were willing to talk with me because they want to know too. And the more people were willing to talk to me, the more information I would get. And the more information I would get, the more they would be willing to talk to me. And it just kind of fed off each other and grew and grew and grew. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you for coming out today and speaking to us. And my name is Will, and I go to Boston College for graduate school. And my question is, since with your role as an NFL insider, how do you use effective time management when you're outside your role?
Well, this is ineffective right now. Right? So, again, you do what you have to do. If it means getting up earlier or going to bed later or working on your journal during lunch or skipping a night out at the bar with your friends, that's what you do. Again, it's a commitment. It's a livelihood. It's something that matters to you. If it matters to you, well, you'll get it done. You'll figure out a way. Right? If it doesn't, you know, it's like doing your homework in school. How do you make a commitment to do that? Well, you figure it out. And it's no different. So this is your homework for your job all the time. And that's kind of the way it works.
Hey Adam, I'm Trenton Lyon. I'm from Arkansas. So when you have a situation like you and Jeff Darlington did with reporting on Tom Brady retiring, and then you have all of these people saying no, it's not true, and his dad saying he hasn't made a decision yet. Do you go back and check your sources?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's a good question. Like, you know, we wouldn't have gone with the story if we didn't feel like we had the story. But I've had so many of these situations over the years. Like, there was one that I had, it had to be roughly 10 years ago. You could probably Google it. But it was a Monday. And just like coaches remember every detail of every play, I can remember all the details of every story that was a notable story. It was a Monday afternoon. Week 16 had just ended. They were going to the last regular season week. The Dallas Cowboys were playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Winner of that game wins the division, go to the playoffs, loser goes home. We do NFL Live, it ends at 4 o'clock. I get a call that Tony Romo's going to have back surgery, he's out for the year. I reported, Tony Romo's going to have back surgery, he's out for the year. Jason Garrett was having a press conference at 5 o'clock, 55 minutes later. Cowboys, ESPN went to overdrive, sending out reporters every media truck. When I'm up in Dallas that day, everybody is anxious to hear what Jason Garrett has to say. He comes out on Monday, 5 o'clock, 55 minutes after my report that Romo's having back surgery and is out for the year. And he says, they say, Coach, what's the deal with Tony Romo? And they said, well, he's day to day. We'll see if he's able to practice tomorrow.
Oh.
And so my boss called me, he's like, do you get it right? I'm like, yeah, you're right. He's like, well, why is Jason Garrett saying this? I don't know what he's saying. I'm just telling you what I was told. I'm what I did. Now I've got people on my own network emailing me. You might want to backtrack and tone it down and just say, like, he could have back surgery. I'm like, I said what I said. Like, what are you going to do? He went on all week long. Is Tony going to practice today? He said, yeah, what's the deal? Jimmy Johnson tweeted, someone's lying here. Either the reporter got it wrong or the organization's lying. That Friday, 11 a.m., I'm driving to New York City. My phone starts exploding. Cowboys announced that morning Tony Romo had back surgery. He's out for the year. 4 days of taking tremendous criticism. 4 days. 10 years ago, it happens all the time. And it never gets easier to deal with. But it's also as gratifying when it comes out the way it does. Yeah.
Cooper Barton from Tri-Way High School.
How you doing? Yep.
This is just surreal. I'm sorry, but how would you explain how you got there? Like some advice for me, because you were like someone that I looked up to.
Well, basically everything I said here, I think anybody here can answer that for you as well as I can. Basically, hard work, living it, dedicating yourself, doing the right thing, getting in the door, making yourself indispensable, building relationships, not burning people. Right? If you want something, anybody in this room wants something, you can go make anything happen. I didn't know that. I didn't know that with my parents. They thought, family business, and nobody explained to me at your age, as I would tell you today, you can go do anything you want to do. If you want to be NFL general manager, go be it. You want to be the president of the United States, go be that. You want to go take over Wall Street, go do that. But know all the sacrifice and all the commitment that everybody said, I want to do that until they have to do it. I want to be an insider. Right. So if I be with your family and work Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and be gone for weeks at a time and go to training camps and you want to do that, right?
I wanted to give up anything.
Okay. Everybody says that. Don't let me stop you. Right.
Adam, left field here.
Yeah.
How's it going? Thanks for taking time out to talk to us again. My name is Sean Bounds from Philadelphia. And I just wanted to ask you a question. You talked about your times in the newspaper industry with University of Michigan and stuff.
Yeah.
How would you say that earlier experiences shaped who you are today? Or just your time at those early places, basically?
Well, a lot of rejection, which fueled my desire. It exposed me to a world that I had never been exposed to. Again, I didn't envision doing that. I feel like Michigan is part of my upbringing. The Bronx, I tell people all the time, I feel like I got my undergraduate degree at Michigan. I got my graduate degree at Northwestern, and I got my master's from the Denver Broncos. That's how I feel. 15, 16 years covering that team, being around the guys, learning what you could and couldn't do, learning how an NFL locker room operates, learning how an NFL season functions, learning what does and doesn't happen. So, again, putting myself in all these different situations and opportunities to just learn, grow, and kind of let it go where it will, which is where it went.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
My name is Christian Simmons. I'm from Missouri Baptist University.
Christian, you said?
Yeah. I just get all those. I'm sorry. That's so weird because I'm the same. I just get all these relationships.
Again, just starting in Denver. When I was there, the funny thing is that they had an assistant coach, quality control coach, a guy that was in the back. His name was Rick Smith. Rick Smith became the general manager of the Houston Texans. Gary Kubiak was an offensive coordinator. He became the head coach of the Denver Broncos, Minnesota. What else did he became head coach? I forget. So, man, I don't know. It's supposed to be. He bounced. He became Houston Texans. Christian McCaffrey was a little boy. You know who was a ball boy when I covered that team? I had him on my podcast, the Adam Schefter podcast last week.
Yes, you did.
Mike McDaniel was a ball boy when I was covering the Denver Broncos. And when I'm having him on the podcast this week, he was telling me that he used to pick up the newspaper to read my articles to find out what the team was doing. Which honestly was so cool to me to hear that. And here he is, 25 years later, as a head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And here I am, 25 years later, having him, the former Broncos ball boy, on my podcast. You know what's like? I remember being on the field, Christian McCaffrey was a little boy running around visiting his dad, McCaffrey, or whatever. So I'm around all these, I knew all these people. And so some of those little boys have learned the big boys. Some of those big boys, like Shannon Sharp, have gone to the media. Mark Schreck on Fox. It's kind of crazy around all these people, and you watch the way everybody handles themselves, and you learn what works and what doesn't work, what you would like to do, what you wouldn't like to do. Watch everybody. Lessons from everybody.
5 minutes, Adam, you can get them cleaned out, I promise you to get you.
Okay, we'll do the speed round here, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Go.
Pleasure to meet you, Adam.
No more sit up.
I'm George from Florida. Quick two-part question. Has anybody, when you've reported something and you know it's right and you go with your gut because you verified everything and it's right, even though everybody else is telling you wrong, has anybody ever come back after you, after the fact, when you were right, and said you're right?
Tom Brady Sr., what he said.
Okay, Tom Brady Sr., okay, I didn't hear that.
Like, it happened with Jimmy Johnson, Tony Romo. I mean, there's so many, there was a story in 2018. I was at my mother-in-law's 75th surprise birthday dinner. This is great, because we talk about life balance, right? It's the last Saturday in August, season's about to start. We're having a surprise 75th birthday dinner for my mother-in-law in Piedmont, New York. We walk in, she walks in, surprise! We sit down at the table, I get a text. How you doing? I'm like, great, everything okay? Person says, have some information for you. I'm at my mother-in-law's 75th birthday dinner, it's a Saturday in August. I said to the table, excuse me, I gotta make a call. Call back to person says, just wanted to give you a heads up. Andrew Luck is retiring tomorrow. I said, excuse me? Andrew Luck's retiring. Well, I put out the story. My phone rings 90 seconds later. It's Matthew Hasselbeck, who works at ESPN, who was Andrew Luck's backup quarterback in Indianapolis. And he said to me, did you report that Andrew Luck is retiring? And I said, yeah. And he said, are you sure? And I said, am I sure? I put it out there. And he said, I was just with him all weekend in Indianapolis. He never mentioned a word about it to me. And I went, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, I got scared. Like, did something get lost in translation? So whether it's Tom Brady's dad, or Jimmy Johnson, Jason Garrett, or Matthew Hasselbeck, you're a human being. You're like, what the hell's going on here? Right? But we did retire. Yeah.
Thank you.
Adam, thank you for your time. My name is Charles Stewart. I'm a college professor at Lake University and first year NFL certified agent. Question for you. As an agent, how do we best maximize our relationship with the media and what should we be focusing on?
Well, it's a great question, Charles. I would just say this, like whether you're a reporter or whether you're an agent or whether you're a coach or whether you're a GM, it's just, again, the same attributes that we're talking about. Being courteous, being considerate, thinking of others as well as yourself. Serving others, as Mike McDaniel said on our podcast. Serving others. Because if you serve others, they will serve you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
3 more. 3 more. Go ahead. Don't get up, anybody. Go ahead.
Brandon Rogers, North Central College in Purville, Illinois. I'm Miami Dolphin fan, so I listened to the podcast the other day, and you talked about you sacrificing not going on vacations.
Yeah.
Due to your wife and everything.
Yeah.
My question is, with her sacrifices and you being away, do you have any advice on how to handle that, or any changes you might have made, or any?
I mean, basically, we talked about it I did part of my Kate Barstool podcast this week, Brandon, today. We spent a lot of time talking about that vacation stuff, and some of the things that we're talking about today, right? So, again, part of SAC, I haven't taken a vacation, and I've been away for a week in the 15 years I've been married, not 1 week. And it's not all because of me. My wife doesn't like to leave. We've got 5 dogs, jobs. There's always an excuse. Bottom line, I'm done. The way it is. Yeah.
My question is, when you first started off as a professional, was it hard to balance between being a fanboy of the game and also like a professional when you tell the story?
It's a great question. I've been asked that question. I love that question. And honestly, the truth is that when I started doing it in college, I was a fanboy in college. I was. But the more you do it, I was mentioning before, it's about being professional. And you learn that you're not a fanboy. Like when I was in college at Michigan, watching my school, yes, of course. Like it was fun, it was exciting. Bo Schembechler, I brought him up. I remember he was having a final luncheon, my senior year. And every Monday, the media would be allowed to go to his luncheon where he would talk to you about the upcoming game, and he would serve you lunch. Like, you know what was better? I got free lunch in Michigan and listen to Bo Schefter. And I thanked him. I went over to him at the last one, and I said, Coach, I just want to thank you for all this. This was worth missing school for on Monday. I learned so much listening to you. He slapped me on the cheek and goes, you like the bullshit, son, don't you?
Last question.
Yeah.
Adam, how are you?
Hello.
Josh Ford, Rhode Island. My nieces and my older brother is here after the Bristol, Connecticut.
Oh, wow. Okay, yep.
What's next for Adam Schefter?
I like to think in the.
This is inside SNWW. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I said the long answer is if you're asking as it pertains to my contract, and talking about this in part of my take, it's actually very funny. My contract is up July 1st, and so part of my take, those guys, they were telling me that I should remove all mentions of ESPN on my social media. They told me that right before free agency starts, I should announce I'm holding out from ESPN until I get a new contract. Yeah, well, so what's next? What's next is I get an afternoon TV from the Dome on ESPN. And 16 text messages to return.
Hey, we owe a big thank you for